Welcome to Refuge Radio. I'm your host, Ryan, for Grow, Kill, and Adapt. Today we're going to have Bryce McGarvey get together with me and chat about scratching off our plans and coming up with new ones. Bryce, we're excited to have you here with us today. Kind of give us, what is your role at Refuge? You're one of our employees, but what do you do, man?
Yeah. So I am the campus director, campus pastor, whatever you want to call it, of our Bellwood campus.
Okay. How long have you been doing that?
So I guess I got hired on in August, and then January we transitioned, and so I was full-time running that.
Yeah, we kind of took a 3-month approach to kind of scale up, and then in December I headed out, right? And this has been your campus, your baby now. You're working on building relationships. What are some of the goals that you actually have for the Bellwood campus?
Yeah. So when I first was called into this position, accepted and everything, I took some time to pray and just ask God, God, what do you want to do with this campus? And me and him kind of, I guess, collaborated together, more so on his plans and mine, of course. But personally, I would love to see 50 kids come to Christ this year. We had a plan to move out of the Hope Center, which is where we're meeting at least for our congregational meetings. We still run small groups every week, but other than that, we wanted to move into New Life. New Life Church, and just because it's a bigger space, it's already being offered to us, and there's just a lot more room there to see growth happen as far as what are our capabilities, what can we do with the location that we can't do at a Hope Center where we have to tear down every single week. And New Life has been very gracious in letting us use those even in the midst of mistakes that I make, maybe in not shutting things down properly, but they still have been super gracious so far in helping me as far as I transition more into these positions.
That's great, man. I'm excited. Well, besides when Wayne comes up and tells me, pastor in New Life, we love him dearly, but when he comes up and says, hey, the board wasn't shut down right or whatever else, we haven't had many issues over there, and we're glad to have the space. I think it's important for us to share quality with kids too, and so that location gives them a home, gives them ownership, and be able to transition out. And one of the things you mentioned is that the model at Refuge for Bellwood actually looks different from the other models that we have. So a weekly schedule, just to kind of share with everybody out there, usually on our weeklies we have congregational meetings at our Tyrone and Altoona campus, and then in Bellwood we have been doing small groups 3 weeks out of the month, and then 1 week with what we consider hype night, or a congregational worship night, where we have worship music and a lesson, and we come together to do some type of event. So it looks different. The model is different. What kind of growth have you seen since we started doing that different model?
Yeah. So we, out of the 50 kids that we're hoping to see come to Christ, we have seen 21 so far.
Wow.
We, on top of that, these are more than just, altar calls at the end of the service. We've had a couple of students approach us and say, they don't want to miss small groups every week, and these are a lot of these kids. I can think of one in particular that he did not grow up in the church, and so any sort of church culture, meeting on Sundays, that's just not his reality. It hasn't been his experience, but since running these small groups, he has stated in the past that he doesn't want to miss, that he's committed, which is crazy to me, because this is a very, it's not like a normal youth group congregation style where there's things to hide behind, the games, the worship, your friends and everything. This is we're gonna come at you guys, we're gonna talk to you. And for him, he's he loves that, and that's the same for a lot of the students that are participating in our small groups. So
that's good, man. Well, so we know, and everybody else does that's in youth ministry, I'm sure that you guys are impacted too. about 3 weeks ago, we kind of got a shutdown order here in Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
We were no longer supposed to meet with over 10 participants at that time, and so because of that, we had to come up with a new plan. And basically our model, just so that all of you are familiar with it, is contact kids in their environment, connect with them through campus settings, and create opportunities to mentor and disciple. And we want to keep that model going. And we walked in the room, we all sat down together, and it was like, what do we do now?
Yeah.
Right? So kind of walk through what your thoughts are, especially as a campus director, somebody that's leading, pastoring the kids that are in Bellwood. What does it look like now that, hey, we still have these 3 principles. How do we connect? How do we build these into what we did? And what did you do during that time? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah, no, it's funny because we're, and Ryan knows this, we're part of like a number of different like youth pastor groups on Facebook. And when this thing first came out, in China, there's a couple of people putting out feelers like, hey, like, what are you guys doing to prepare for the coronavirus? I don't think any of us really like thought that it would turn this bad this quick. And so I'm sitting there, I'm reading those, I'm like, oh, like, won't be that big of a deal. And then sure enough, I was eating my words, and it's not been exactly a fun time to try to transition into so quickly, but the Lord has been faithful. He's of course a very gracious God in our shortcomings, and so but yeah, I mean, as far as adjusting goes, youth ministry looks a lot different than what it was beforehand. We are no longer we no longer have the capability to try to like catch the kids where they're at and lock them in. So unfortunately, it requires a lot of just a different kind of effort. And so we were meeting. A lot of what a lot of other churches are doing is we're doing Zoom calls. Where I've been upping up my time that I dedicate to try to play video games with some of our students.
Yeah, video games is a big part of ministry right now.
yes, it's quite the burden. It's part of my job, I guess. But so those intentional things, texting the students, just trying to keep up with them, let them know that I'm here, even though that I think there's still a level of like comfortability that we have to break a little bit, just because like this isn't normal, and so and the students definitely recognize that, and so for them, like, they're just looking for what I'm finding is a lot of them are looking for entertainment at this point, and so we can try to provide that, but to be honest, I'm not a social media influencer. I'm not these sorts of people, and so for me, it looks a lot of like texting the students. Again, keeping up with them. We're running something now, kind of like a passive game program. I don't really know what to classify it as. It's called the quarantine games, and so each day we're releasing 2 daily challenges, and so as students participate in those, they can send in video submissions, photo submissions, however they need to get to us, as long as we can see it, and it's challenges you can complete with home, and their social distance practices, like conducive, however you want to say that.
So I would say that this is Bryce's brainchild. It was something that he walked in the door with us and had said, hey, we need a way to connect. And we knew that there was a desperation for us to learn how to connect, because we basically took all of our ministry model and had to cut it all down. Everything about showing up to where the kids were, all of those places. Social media was a part of our ministry, but not something that we focused on specifically, I guess, right? It was something that we kind of did it was a necessity. Yeah, necessary evil, right? So what we did was, Bryce came in with this idea of, hey, how do we get kids to interact with us, spending time, still doing things with us, and we've adapted that. So there's a bunch of tools out there. I'm sure if you have been on any of those youth pastor sites, you'll be able to see all the tools that people are using. But one of the ones that we wanted to create was something that was fun and engaging for anybody that wanted to jump aboard. And so quarantine games really for us was let's do fun and engaging. But there's a piece that we didn't share attached to this is we created our own U version, which is a Bible app devotional that is attached to each day. So we've been able to schedule those out. Kids are supposed to do the challenges and they can see what we're reading and dive into that. And for us, this year has been very much about intentionality, right?
Yeah.
How do we become intentional with our kids, our leaders, our donors, whoever it might be, finding a way to be intentional. And I think that this is one of the most intentional because there's a result that comes from this that we've been able to look at, like an actual measurable, where we said, we don't want anything for this. We want other youth pastors to be blessed by the same thing.
Yeah.
And we've had 500 different ministries jump aboard quarantine games, something that God kind of said, all right, well, we need to be motivated to do, and jumped into there.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember when it was a Sunday night when I was just processing to myself because we had a... make sure I cough into my elbow. So I was looking around and just looking for different ideas. Because at that time when this because it was a very fast process that was occurring as far as what are we going to do to combat the coronavirus. And so I saw a lot of people were asking, what are you doing with your youth ministries? What are you doing with your youth ministries? And I saw a lot of, again, the texting, Zooms, and I'm sitting there, I'm like, okay, those are a given now. Those are a necessity at this point because it's our only option to stay connected. But what else can we do? What can we do that's not so much like, hey, how are you doing? How's your heart? How can we maybe bring some joy in their lives, make them do something goofy like we would normally, let them know that we care and make them feel part of their group. And so it was a Sunday night, and that's when I thought, well, what if we did these different challenges every day that they could do from home? They didn't require anyone else but themselves. All they had to do was participate, and they would be involved. And so that's where it kind of spawned from this desire to what can we do creatively outside of this intentionality that not only that we want to pursue but that we have to pursue as well.
Yeah. So now we're looking at this, and this has shaped and changed how our ministry looks right now.
Yeah.
What do you think the influence is going to be when we walk out of this season? I mean, let's say it's 3 months, I don't know, 6 months, a year down the road, when this isn't a necessity. How is our ministry going to be changed by it?
Yeah, I mean, the way the youth culture is going, especially with more social media platforms coming out. It used to be we just had Facebook, and then Twitter came on the scene, and Instagram, and Snapchat, now TikTok. And there's a book out there. It's called Hurt 2.0. Shout out to Josh Sumter if you're watching this, but my professor from college. but no, he talks about this idea of the world beneath. And so for so long, it's like the youth have essentially created their own world beneath our reality. And so they're involved with these things like TikTok and really Instagram and Snapchat, where they can live these lives because that's what they know, that's what's safe. And so as a result, it's actually kind of hard to try to do youth ministry in this culture. It's a joy, but it's also it has its challenges because again, it's really hard to enter in to that world beneath. And so you can try to meet them where they're at. And so as far as what that looks like, how that impacts our future ministry, right now I think this time really just kind of brings that world beneath up to the surface where we can see it front and center. And so for us, a youth group is no longer just about how what kind of fun games can we play. Really, it looks like how are we going to intentionally reach into that community, because any sense of falsehood, any sense of oh, they're doing this just because they have to, or any sense of passivity, they see right through that. That's why they've created that world beneath. They need someone. They if anyone's going to enter that, there has to be someone that's going to be intentional with them, and it shows that they actually care, that's willing to meet them where they're at, rather than saying, hey, come out of that world for a little bit, put your phone down and come with us. Yeah. We're of course we're going to fight that battle till the day we die, but it's challenging, but also I think in a sense rewarding. I think you would probably agree with this. I think youth students they're growing up a lot faster than what they had to before. At least even I'm only a couple years removed from youth culture, and I see the exponential differences. And it's crazy to me, but at the same time, again, it's the harvest is plentiful.
Yeah.
The field is ripe with the harvest. We just need workers.
Yeah. So actually, there's a couple things that I received on Zoom calls. One of the things that people mentioned was, what happens if we inundate this below culture you're talking about, that social media, the place where they can build their own, basically their own web of life that no one else knows about. What happens if we inundate it too much? Won't they get annoyed? Won't they fall away from us? Won't they? And in this call, one of the leaders said, you know what? Just because we all see it, just because we're connected to people that are youth pastors, or we've decided that that's a part of our life that we want to see in our social media, we might be the only representation of Jesus that is popping through on a whole day's worth of content that comes through. So, we're putting out, 5 posts a day, and we think that's way too many. But for kids, that might be the only moment of redemption or even hope or whatever else it might be, directing them to Christ so they even see throughout the day. And there's a due diligence attached to that, where we have to dig deeper, we have to go farther, we have to be willing to say, you know what, I want to be authentically a parent to these kids and transparent to these kids, but at the same time know that it's not just about my posts, it's about the personal relationship. It's how do we build those relationships. One of the things we found is our kids love watching themselves on our own social media, right? So when we do our quarantine games recaps, those are probably one of the most watched videos that we have, because they get to watch themselves acting on our stuff. It's that we care about them enough. So one of the other things that we did while we scratched our plans and changed everything is we spent a day packing, I want to say over 250 supply drops. Things, and I'm not sure if you're in a place now where you can't even leave your house or not, but if that's the case, we understand that there's restrictions to this, but we just went and bought a bunch of supplies, dropped in a life book, because we have about 3 million of them, dropped in a life book, gave them 3 scriptures that we thought were important for them to memorize, gave them something to draw them to Zoom, which was a little card, right? Like a playing card. We wrote our initials on the back and said, bring that to the Zoom call, you'll win a prize. One of the things that we're going to do with that is have pizza delivered to a kid's house that has the right card, and they're on the Zoom call. So we're just finding ways to interact with kids differently as we go. And what I've found during this season is I'm learning more about kids' lives than I would if I just saw my campus. For sure, for me, I get to see the inside of their house. When we're on the Zoom call, we were sitting in their bedroom, and I'm like, "Oh, you like Stranger Things? Let's talk about," because they have a poster on the wall, or they're in a household where there's lots of little kids around. I might not even know who their siblings are, but this might give me an opportunity to say, "Hey, I care about you now. How is your family doing? How is that?" And so what I've seen this time, a lot of people have said, "Well, there's not a lot of places for us to do outreach." Well, when they sit in their house and say, I've made this important to get on a Zoom call with my leaders, just in that impact itself, the family sees the outreach that is necessary to that. And then we encourage them to send their friends in there. I mean, all these kids sit online. One of our kids, while I was getting ready for our discipleship group before our regular session this week, one of them was on just an Xbox chat. And I was like, I hope you're not playing games. And she's like, oh, no, I'm just chatting with my friends on here. Yep. Well, if you're doing that there, if they were doing that even before they showed up to Refuge or Zoom, we missed the ball for years. And I just had a conversation with the pastor of the Salvation Army, and he had said, this will give us an opportunity to build revolution in the way that we reach people for ministry. We always expect them to come into the building. What if the building is not there? And that's what God has done. The building's not there. How do we become like the church? How do we become the church when the building's not there anymore?
Yeah.
So what's your thoughts on how we become the church when the building's not there?
Yeah. I mean, one, I think this time really shows us how much more we need to rely on the people that God has brought around us, the different leaders. You know, so we're not meeting together weekly anymore, and so when we're meeting together weekly, it's really easy for us to try to interact with everyone, get some FaceTime with everybody. But the reality is there's a lot of kids. And so now, because we don't have that ability, that means either you, me, Chow, Micah, Matt, that either means we try to contact all 250 kids ourselves, or we say, hey, there's people in leadership around us. And so let's bring them into this. Let's really rely, because we need them at this point. It's not possible for us to build that many meaningful relationships. Just the 5 of us, 4 of us, and so I think that's one big thing. But as far as like, I don't know, being the church during this time, man, I think a lot of it means, for me, something that God seems to keep like leading me towards is, I'll try to do some entertainment. I'll try to be funny. I'll try to be goofy and put out like silly videos of us. But when all is said and done, at the end of the day, when a student's going home, for a generation that already has like skyrocketed statistics about depression and anxiety, for them to now be set in a time period where they are alone for hours at a time, they have put themselves in this world beneath, and so a lot of times their parents aren't even able to get into that world, and they are just by themselves. All they have is these sometimes just surface level relationships on their phone, and something God's been just keep on like revealing to me is like, hey, just keep speaking into hope, keep speaking into redemption, keep speaking the gospel. At the very end of the day, that's one of the most important things that we could do during this time is talk of a God that gives us hope, talk of a God that meets us when we're experiencing feelings of anxiety and depression and loneliness, and search out a God that wants to say, hey, you're sitting alone, I'm sitting right with you. Why don't you take this time? Why don't you seek me? Why don't you take this time and be intentional with me? And honestly, like that could be one of the greatest decision they could do during this time is to seek intentionally after God, because I have a feeling when all these distractions are put at bay, when they've purposely put down things, partially because they're bored, they're part of the bored of using certain things. If they can intentionally put down all these things, I think that's when God's going to speak the loudest. And so if I can be a part of that, if I can just keep planting seeds, I can't make these seeds grow, but I can sure do my best effort to run it out of the field and try to throw them everywhere and make sure they at least hit the ground, make sure they at least hit some good soil, that we can cultivate those seeds and hopefully see some growth come from it.
Yeah, I appreciate the idea of the radical way of us having to change, and I just want to put like, I wrote this letter out a week ago. It was like, all of a sudden this news hit for us, and it was like, no more meetings, no more programs, no student life programs, no more Bible studies, all the things that we had. I mean, we had boxing club and laser tag league lined up, and we were getting ready for our end of school barbecue. All of that had to go on pause or had to be canceled. Even our leaders conference that we had, it was like our leaders retreat. We're going to take everybody out, and we had a good group going with us. All of that had to go on pause. And what that did for me was that busyness. I felt like God said, okay, you've created busyness, but have you actually gone and shared the good news at the same time?
Yeah.
Like, all of that busyness is good to build relationships, but were you actually sharing the good news? And what if I take all of this away from you?
Yeah.
What if I put you in a place where that is not even available to you anymore? How are you still going to share the good news? So, and I would say that even though our plans were scratched, our commission was not scratched.
No.
We needed to still dig in and go deeper.
Yeah.
And honestly, for us, I think that we become more busy. I think that we have been more busy building content, more busy trying to reach kids on purpose, more busy trying to help other ministries, more busy with. I've been on Zoom way too much, man.
Yes.
Like I love connecting with people, but I feel like I'm on Zoom all the time.
Yes.
And what I appreciate is I know some of you out there don't have teams and things like that, but our team has been able to say, okay, let's not just fix what Refuge looks like. Let's work on a way to help others get that too. And so I really appreciated that.
Yeah.
I'm going to kick us into the next segment. If you have any other questions about how we scratched and went on adapting, we have some documents and things that I can shoot over to you. Just email us, Ryan at refugeyouth.network.org or Bryce at refugeyouth.network.org, and we'd be more than willing to shoot stuff over to you. We have no problem sharing, man. Like we want you to be successful. We love you. We're praying for your ministry. But as we get moving forward, I want to ask you something.
Yeah.
And I'll share mine today because I think it's really cool. But Youth Builder. We're in the Youth Builder segment. Boom, right here in my hands, Chow, right? Youth Builder. Something you saw that was created inside of ministry that was DIY.
Okay.
That you think would be incredibly important for other ministries, whether it's right now or as they get back to the season, that they can implement.
Okay.
I'll go first. So
Yeah.
I'll give you a little bit.
Yeah.
First off, I would say that Quarantine Games has been a big blessing to us because it was something that helped so many other people. But right now, there are lots of people out there. My buddy Jacob Curlin, Todd Purage, everybody from Download Youth Ministries that recognize we're all in a crisis and we're trying to figure out what ministry looks like. And they have stepped up and taken their own personal pieces to their own ministry and given it to us. We have a little calendar that went out weekly that I look at, and everybody's like, oh, where'd you get that? Well, my buddy Todd built it and then gave it to everybody for free, and then I built it and they asked me for it. So you're looking at the influence of finally sharing our tools in a proper way so that we can see great success instead of just being like, well, I created this for me and it's mine. So I appreciate you guys. I appreciate anybody that's willing to be out there sharing those things. We love you. We want to support you guys. Check out all those guys that I just mentioned, and there's lots more out there. People just want ministry to be successful right now, and to me, that's one of the best ways that we can do it is just sharing that DIY. We all got to create it. We might as well share it.
Yeah.
All right, your turn.
Yeah. I don't know if I can necessarily narrow it down to a specific resource, but with Download Youth Ministry, they actually put out, I can't think of the website address at the top of the head, but maybe Chow can do that same thing in my hands. But no, it's coming from Download the Youth Ministry. They actually made their own hub. They said, hey, they reached out to the youth pastor community and said, hey, give us what stuff you're doing right now. We're gonna put it in this hub for free. And it's specifically made for this like quarantine time. All sorts of resources. There's lessons. There's game ideas. There's calendars. There's like almost like a policy like handbook. Like how are we gonna approach this time as a ministry? And they're continuing. Like I just got on the other day. It started off with like a couple items I just got on again the other day, and it's like they just keep on adding like as often as possible. As often as youth pastors send in their material and say, hey, I'm willing to share this with the rest of the youth pastor community. So there's this huge like hub of resources, and that's totally free. All you have to do is just go in and click download, and you're good. So yeah, it's very like very encouraging to see people take youth ministry so seriously, because I think we all recognize that there's a intentionality and there's a longevity that needs to be attached to all of this. And so if we can continue to give resources, maybe that'll help us along. For those of us that might need help in certain areas, maybe some of us need games, maybe some of us need lessons, maybe some of us just need to know what the heck are we gonna do during this time.
How do we unmute ourselves on Zoom?
Yes. Yeah, there's even a Zoom instructional video.
Nice. I need to send that to every kid before we get started.
Yes.
The kids that are so tech savvy, that Zoom seems to be a challenge.
Yeah. Like, wait, how do I change my background? I'm like, are you kidding me? I figured this out.
Yeah.
I'm sitting here with an office background. What are you doing?
Yeah, well, we appreciate you, Bryce. Thank you for sharing with us a little bit about just that complete change that we've been having. And we want to say a special thanks to Chalmers Port, our director of digital media, for stepping up and doing this for us. We love you guys. Remember to stay in your lane, and that God loves you.